Hi, I'm Allison and I'm an instructor here at the Paint Cellar. Today we're going to be painting this The Ghost Who Was a Quilt painting, and I'm going to be showing you how to do that step by step. So you should have picked up all of your supplies already. So you'll have your paints, we have our brushes, and you should have a canvas. We're painting it on a smaller canvas today. And what I'm going to do is show you what to do step by step, and then you can pause the video. I'll tell you when to pause, and then that way you can catch up and do the step that I just taught you. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to map out the room. There is a little bit of perspective going on here. But what we're going to do is just sketch it out, and then that way we'll have lines to follow, and then if you don't like your lines, you can always paint over them, so this way we can get that angle right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our big round brush here. It looks like this, and I like to get mine wet first and then wipe it off a little. And we're just going to mix in white and that dark brown color. We're just making a light color so that we can paint over it later and you won't be able to see it. And I'm going to sketch in the corner of my room. So the corner would be actually behind this ghost. This is about the middle of the painting, so it's about down and to the right, like a couple inches. Well, it's smaller on here, so I'm going to put a dot about, I'm going to do mine darker so you can actually see it. So I'm going to put a dot about there. That's going to be the corner of my room. And then from there, I'm going to drag one side all the way to the edge like this. And the other side is going to go down at an angle. And that's going to be for the wall that the mirror is on. So this is what we're making. And then I'm also going to drag a line up from that corner straight as the edge of the canvas up. So again, these lines do not have to be perfect. We're just putting this in for perspective, and then we're going to paint on top of it. The next line that you want to do is going to be for the window. We're basically following this line and this bottom line. So you want them to be the same direction. So they're parallel, and it's just a little bit in from the middle line, and then a little bit in from the bottom line. So you do want to keep them as parallel as possible, and then that's going to be where your window goes. You can go ahead and pause the video and draw those lines. So for the next step, I'm going to be using my big square brush. It looks like this. Again, I like to wet it down and then just dry it off a little bit. And we're going to be putting in the floorboards here. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to dip one side of our brush in the dark brown color and the other side in black. So I'm going to dip one side in the dark brown and one side in black, just like that. And I'm going to line it up with this line that we made on the opposite side of the window. And I'm just going to try and keep it as close to that line as possible. And I'm dragging it down this way. To continue to put paint on your brush, you're just going to do the same thing. Dip it in the same side in black, same side in brown. And then I'm going to come right next to it. And we're just layering that on. So the brown and the black will mix together on their own. And it doesn't have to be perfect. They're not perfect lines. You're just continuing that, layering the brown and the black on. So you're lining it up with the edge of your brush, because it's flat, up with that line, and then dragging it across. So you can pause the video now and put in your floorboards. When you're done with that step, you should have this whole bottom triangle that we made filled in. And you do want to go ahead and paint the edges in the bottom of your canvas where that floor would be, so that when you hang it on the wall, it looks completely done. So one more thing you can do while that floor is drying is we can go ahead and fill in the entire window in black. So you already marked out where the edges of that window are going to be, and you can use whatever brush you feel comfortable with. I'll probably use the big square brush, and we're just using black to fill in the whole window. So also, before we let it dry, I'm going to use my big round brush and like a black brown mixture, and I'm just going to go around the edges where we drew those lines and make sure we have a clean line to go off of. So here, and then also especially on this edge where you had all these brush strokes, I'm just going to go along there and just give it a clean line. Not going to come out super straight, but I'm going to touch it up, and that way when we put the walls on, there won't be like any gap where there's little white spaces or anything. Okay, next we're gonna lay in the walls. So if you look closely, the walls are a gray color, but they're like white and black that aren't fully mixed, kind of like the floorboards here. So I'm gonna use more white than black because it is like a light colored gray. And I'm gonna use my big round brush again, and I'm just gonna lay that on straight up and down. So kind of like the line you drew in the corner, or if you want to follow the edge of the canvas. And then I'm going to add, while my brush is still wet, I'm going to add a little bit more black and just come across that line that we drew for the corner. And that way it will stand out a little bit. So again, probably your big square brush actually. So this guy. A lot of white and a little bit of black. And I just kind of put them both on my brush. You don't have to like fully mix it up. Just mix it up a little bit. And I'm going to start down at the floorboards and come just straight up. And if this one looks a little bit too dark, just add in more white. You don't have to mix it all together. Just add in more white and just continue to layer that on. But make sure you don't lose that corner. You want to make that a little bit darker, just a line of black, so that will stand out. So go ahead, paint all of your walls, and then we'll come back and we can start working on our ghost. So as you can see, as I was painting, it did kind of get into my black square for my window a little bit. That's fine. Once it dries, we can just paint that line again. And then also you do want to make sure you're wrapping all of this around to your edges as you're going along. We have a couple more details to add in before we start doing our ghost. So first we're going to put the mirror back here. And then we're also going to put the cross on our window. So I'm going to use my big round brush for both of these. So for the mirror, it has black. And it's just going to be like an oval shape, but it does go off the side a little bit. So it's going to be on the wall that doesn't have the window, and it's pretty high up. It's probably like an inch from the top. And I'm just going to sketch in this oval shape, and then you're going to do it a couple times. So it's kind of a thicker edge, and it's not perfect. Just kind of adding that in there. I have my black outline for my mirror. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in this part of my window. It's going to be white and that dark brown mixed together. More white than brown because it's pretty light. And then I'm going to go ahead, use that same brush. And to keep your line straight, again, you're kind of referencing the bottom of this window and moving that up further, like right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line across here and a line coming down the middle this way. Then take your time, you can clean it up, make it pretty solid, and then we'll start working on our ghost here in a second. So next we are actually going to put the reflection of the ghost in the mirror. So I'm going to use white. I'm still using that big round brush, and it is kind of a watered down white, so just if your brush is wet from being in the water, just leave it like that and mix it with some of the white paint. And he just has a rounded head and then comes down and ends up meeting up with the black of the mirror. So I'm just going to add that in. And fill that in with my watered down white. And once it dries, we can add the face on it. Alrighty, so we're gonna start working on our ghost. I'm still gonna use that big round brush, and we're gonna use white. Hopefully you have some white that isn't mixed with anything else. And I'm gonna start by just putting a dot where you want the top of his head to be. So mine's like an inch or two off the top on our small canvas. So I'm just gonna go right on the edge of the window, and I'm gonna put a dot like right here. And then I'm also gonna mark where you want the bottom to be. So there is a good amount of floorboard underneath here. So I'm just gonna go about there and mark where our ghost begins and ends. So the top of his head is literally just rounded, and then it's coming down because he is a quilt, because this is the little ghost that was a quilt. So I'm making like a rounded shape that's a little bit wider on the sides. My advice is to start small, and then you can always make it bigger, but if you start too big, then it's going to be hard to fill in. So I kind of have like a arch shape up there, and I'm going to continue down. The bottom of this, I'll show you closer, is just kind of lumpy and bumpy because again, it's a quilt. So it's not like just a flat line across the bottom. So closer to the window, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. I'm going to add like 2 little bumps, something like that. Then I'm going to make it a little bit longer, bring it down to that dot that I made. Round off the edges, just kind of natural flowing quilt shape. And then at one point I'm going to bring it up higher to meet the other side. So at the bottom I have something like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the entire shape with white. So the white may not be solid the first time around. So after you fill in the whole shape, you can always let it dry and then put on another layer, and then that should fully cover the background. Some details that we can add while that first layer of white is drying are going to be the stars. You probably can't even see them from there. I have literally just a couple of stars in each square of that window. So maybe like 3 to 5 stars. You can add more if you feel like it. But the best way is to use the back side of your little brush. So not the side with the bristles on it, the other side. And you can dip it into the white, and then it just makes a little dot. And I'm just dotting a couple of those in the window. Also add the eyes for our ghost that's reflecting in the mirror. So that's going to be a dark gray color. So again, mixing black and white, but now with more black than white. And they're just like long oval shapes. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just adding some long oval shaped eyes to your reflected ghost and filling those in. Okay, so for this next step, we're going to start adding the quilt, and I did go ahead and put another layer of white onto my ghost, and we don't have to let that dry to do this next step. So we're going to start putting in the lines, and when you're putting in the lines, you want to keep in mind that this is on a curved object. So as you can see up here, it kind of curves with the shape of the sheet, so kind of keeping this in mind. And as it gets down here, same thing, like these are kind of curved. So they're not perfectly straight lines, and it's also not like a perfect grid. So you can see like here I put in a line coming down, I put in a couple going across, but I didn't really put in every line. Like there's areas where it's just not complete. So you're gonna go ahead, add in some lines, and to keep it easy for yourself, you maybe don't want them too small, right? So I probably have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 across, so not like super small, but not too big. So I'm gonna use my small round brush, and I'm actually gonna use a really light gray color. So I'm gonna use like just white mixed with black, mostly white, and then we can add in some of the colors. Also keep in mind that each one is going to be different, so don't worry too much about trying to make it exactly like mine. You just want to go ahead and make yours your own. Every quilt is different, so add in some lines and then we'll make some blocks of color. So this is what I got. Again, not exactly like the original. They're all going to be a little bit different, but just adding in some lines. And then once you've done that, we're still going to use our small round brush. And there is different colors all over this quilt. So they are going to be, I have like a gold color, I have red, green, blue, and they are kind of mixed with white. So every single one, like the red is mixed with white, so it makes like a pink color. Mix the green with white, mix the blue with white, and you're gonna go ahead and just pick a square that you've blocked out, and you're gonna outline it in whatever color you choose, and then fill that in. And we're placing these squares randomly around our ghosts. So some of them are catty corners, some are touching each other, and then some are just spaced out, touching no other colored squares. If you're going along and you have those colors mixed with white on your brush, you can also add a little bit of color to the lines that you made, because not all of them are just gray. I kind of just go over the lines that I have with a little bit of color. And you can see on here, some of the lines have a little bit of blue or a little bit of gold, and then just continue filling in with colors until you're happy with the amount of squares you have filled in. You don't really need all of them, just a couple here and there. After you've filled in all your squares that you want to have filled in, really there's only a couple details to finish this off. So first we're going to use gold in our little round brush, and I put little stitch marks on the side of a couple of these squares. So it's literally like two little dash lines that connect the squares, just to give it a little bit more of like a patchwork feel. And I don't have a ton of those, just kind of here and there, stitching some of those squares together. And then you're also going to use your small round brush for silver. And we're just adding some shine to the outside of our mirror. So you're just going around the edge, putting a couple of lines that follow the shape of your mirror. You can barely see it there. It just adds a little bit of shine. So a couple of stitch marks in gold, and then the shine on the edge of the mirror in silver. And then after that, we are pretty much done. So if you want to go ahead and sign your painting, we can call it complete. Thanks so much for coming in and painting with me today. This has been lots of fun, and if you ever want to come back to the actual paint cellar, we're in Aurora. And again, I'm Allison. Thanks so much.